Yo, what's going on, people, and welcome back to the channel. As you can probably see by the title, we're going to be doing another Drake sort of sample in the style of Boi-1da for Nothing Was the Same, More Life. So if you like the sound of this, and then stick around and I'll show you how I break down this sample. If you haven't downloaded the sample pack that's on the screen, it's down below, it's free, make sure to check it out, and let's get straight into it. So for the idea of this sample, I want it to be atmospheric, emotional, and just have a slow vibe to it. So I've got this upright piano. So for the chords for this piano, I've got a C sharp minor ninth, just took out I think the B, and then a D sharp minor, which I've just stacked with like that, and then a G sharp minor ninth, and then I've just, for the second part here, I just dropped it down 5, I think just down 5, so transposed it down 5, so it turned into a D minor ninth, D sharp minor ninth should I say. And then I've just used like these little keys that I've, as you can see here, I've just put them out of sync a little bit, so they're a little bit off tempo. And I think with these chords, just make them very emotional and just give that vibe. The strumming is important to how this sounds. I feel like that gives it the whole vibe to all in total. So for this, I've just EQ'd as usual. Just a light reverb as usual. I don't really need to go into that. And then I've used this vintage plugin, which I've cut to 11K. Just a little bit of saturation, just to give that extra like warmth. Then a vinyl effect, just to give it a little bit of noise in the background, so it gives that ultra like lo-fi sort of piano sound. Then I've layered this piano with a Rhodes, so I've used this Stage 73 from Analog Lab. It's a Mark 5A, and I've just messed with the treble and bass, so it wasn't as, so it's just not as cutting through as much. And then with the Rhodes, I've just made it higher, so I've transposed it by 1 octave, and then I've just thrown it in the same channel rack as the piano, just the same mix. And then with the piano, I have just rendered it, and then I've reversed it, made it really fast, so it sounds like this. Speeding it up in tempo and making it a bit quicker just gives it that like a string sort of vibe. It gives it a cool effect. And then I've used big ambience reverb on it to just make it very filled and just more just in the background, not as full for the sound. I've used this chorus cassette that I like to always use. Then again, I've just cut out to like 20K in the vintage plugin. So once that's done, I want to have like a cool lead. So I found this lead sound and I just made like a counter melody that sounds like this. And the timing and how these chords work in the counter melody just fit perfect. First thing I added was this reels, and I think it just brings the whole of this like sample to a life. And then a slight reverb and EQ is always used. And then lastly, the most important part for this is the delay. It just gives it like a cool effect in the background, just the way that it's strummed and it's very melodic. It just fits in cool. So that's the free bass of the main idea, and this is how it sounds. So for that, I thought it just fits very nice, but I wanted to slow it down. Boi-1da sort of uses like halftime, so what did I do? I used halftime. And as you can probably tell with that lead that I used that delay on in the halftime version, you can just hear like where the delay is like fitting in the pockets and just bringing like the higher pitch of it. So with a lot of Drake samples, it has like percussion, it's lo-fi in the background, so I made these drum loop. And I did this with the soul R&B addictive keys, and this is how it sounds like dry without the effects on. So what I did with that, I ran it through this preamp to just give it like a nice mid-side. I used this cassette with the lo-fi drums that just gives it a cool effect, just gives it a little bit of like a saturation I feel. This chroma tape just to bring the like brightness back into it. Then I've downsampled it to like 2.7k and it just gives that like underwater effect that I was going for. Next I went to add the same lead but not have it slowed down. So I use this pad called Brent's pad from Analog Lab. So I actually did slow this down, but I took the mix down so it had the slowed down version, and then in the pockets you could hear just the higher pitch, which is faster, and it just fits in, gives it a cool like dark vibe. Then I just EQ'd out as usual. Second half of this sample I did this modular bass that just gives it nice airiness, just fits in perfect. What I like about this bass, it's very different and it just gives it a nice low end to it. So with that I use this more edge on the decapitator just to give it like a nice cutting edge, but I took out the high cut so there wasn't too much of like a high end. So next I just use like this flute sound that just gives it atmosphere and just downfalling effect to create like dark tension. Again, tons of reverb, just give that nice atmospheric vibe. And then where it's quite harsh, I wanted to like band pass it, the lows and the highs to be cut a little bit, just to give it a nice underwater effect again. Next I added this arp sound that just gives it a nice dark and cool vibe that I feel like Drake always uses. And all I've used that, as you can see here, in the first 4 bars. And then again on that, a gross beat just to slow it down to give that a dark tension. And then I've used like a filter so it was just going down and just cutting out the high end as it goes along, so it wasn't being too overpowering. Then for the second half of the sample I just used simple sine waves that sound like this. And for this, I've Volve compressed it. I've turned the lo-fi up a lot just to give that nicer lo-fi amount to it. And then again, just an EQ and delay that I like to use. Then I added these vocals that sound like this. With them vocals, they're obviously pitched up, and then I reversed them and just sped them up a bit so they sound like this. And then with that, because it's high pitched, I brought the formant down a little alt boy. Then with my vocals, I always like to use this plate. It just gives it a nice vibe and just gives it a nice like airiness, earthiness to the sample. Took out a lot of highs and lows as I always do. Then this delay that always gives it like a nice cool texture in the background where it's repeating itself. Then I like to use this flanger because it just gives it a nice thinness to the sample altogether. Then lastly, I added this mellotron bell in the second half of the sample. And then obviously I exported it as a whole, brought it down 3 semitones that I always like to do, and then it sounds like this. So yeah, that is the whole sample together. Hopefully you liked it. It came out very nice, fits in that perfect vibe. If you want to download my sample pack, that's free, 15 free samples, and go ahead, it's down below. Follow my Instagram, that's going to be on the screen. If you got any ideas for future videos, leave a like, leave a comment, you know what to do. And I'll see you in the next one, people.